Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you know, uh, while waiting for the participants, uh, let me discuss to you the continuation of chapter 5. We ended our discussion on the special types of death. You know? As investigators, it is very important, and also as part of the subject matter, SCI-1, with legal medicine, it is very important to consider this issue, as far as uh, STI-1 is concerned. So as investigators, you should have knowledge about the medico-legal considerations regarding death investigation. So always remember that when it comes to investigation, in cases of death, that is one of the most difficult problem to solve in terms of investigation, because the victim himself or herself can no longer uh, give his or her testimony regarding the occurrence of the crime. So therefore, this is a challenge for every investigator to exert all available efforts in order to uh, accomplish the threefold aims of criminal investigation. No? So this knowledge is very important, so that when you make reports, then at least you know the proper uh, scenario, the proper situation, the proper incident, and the proper terms that you should use. So therefore, as I said last time, this is a continuation of chapter 5. No, uh, let us then continue the discussion. Okay. So last time we ended in this particular uh, discussion, you know, uh, on the special uh, types of uh, death, judicial, euthanasia, suicide, and death from starvation. No? So do not forget that causes of starvation, suicidal, uh, kasi nasadyang hindi kumain para mamatay na lang, that is suicidal. Homicidal, yeah, that is the deprivation of food. No? Punishment, okay? Hindi mo pinakain yung anak mo, namatay siya, that is homicidal. Then accidental, that is scarcity of food or water during famines or drought. Shipwreck, and because of accident, no, because of natural calamities that happen, no, people were not able to, intake the proper food in a longer time that may cause the death. No? So, okay, so yeah, so yeah, suicide, death from starvation, and the next topic then for this discussion is the presumption of death. No? Presumption of death. So, you know, uh, this presumption of death is a combination of law and medicine or medical knowledge. So under our law in the Philippines, like the Civil Code of the Philippines, no? Civil Code is a law. No, that is a law. So if we have the revised penal code, we have also the civil code. No, so we have this disputable presumption that this is disputable because that is not absolute. No, yeah, not pwedeng makontest yan. Example, after declaring him as dead, pero meron pala siyang lumabas siya, then that is disputable. No, but of course, this can be used to presume that there is death. Okay. So, first is that a person not heard, no? Biglang nawala at wala nang balita sa kanya for 7 or consecutive 7 years, then we can presume that the person is dead, no? And always remember why there should be the importance of declaring a person dead, no? Yeah, so we already discussed that. So under Article 390 of the Philippine Civil Code and Section 15 of the Rule 131 of the Rules of Court, after an absence of 7 years, it being unknown whether or not the absentee still lives, he shall be presumed dead for all purposes except for those of succession. Yeah, sa mga may mana-mana, yeah, then this is not applied. But in generally, no, pag nawala ang isang tao for consecutive 7 years, nawalang balita sa kanya, then he should be he can be considered dead. Okay? Also, Article 391 of the Civil Code in Section 5, Rule 131 of the Rules of Court, the following shall be presumed dead for all purposes, including the division of the state among the heirs. A person on board a vessel lost during a sea voyage or an airplane is missing was not been heard for 4 years since the loss of the vessel or airplane is considered death. Yeah. So ito naman ibang sa sitwasyon, no? So in a situation whereby a person on board or of a vessel, no, like ship, no, yung mga seaman for example, or a pilot or passenger of both mode of transportation, they are missing and not being heard for 4 years since the loss of the vessel or airplane. They should be considered, they are presumed dead. A person in the armed forces or like the AFP in the Philippines was taken part in war and has been missing for 4 years, then you should be considered dead. Yan. Example, nakipaglaban ka sa Mindanao, nawala ka for 4 years, then they can consider you dead. Nawalang balita. Ni Honiha, walang balita kung saan ka or any details regarding you. Okay? Then a person who has been in danger of death under other circumstances and his existence has not been known for 4 years. Yan. Example, nahulog yung isang tao sa bangin at hindi na siya makita, then he can be considered dead. Example, nalunod ang isang tao, hindi siya makita, then we can presume him as dead after 4 years. Okay? So Article 392 of the Civil Code also, if the absentee appears or without appearing his existence is proved, then he shall recover his property in the condition in which it may be found, and the price of any property that may have been alienated, or the property acquired with but cannot claim either fruit of rents. So, yeah, if the absentee appears or without appearing his existence is proved, yan, pwedeng mangyari yan. Okay, so that is all about the presumption of death. So ano ang pwede niyong isipin sa presumption of death? Tatlo lang yan. So generally, under the Civil Code, pag ang isang tao nawala yan, ni Honiha for 7 years, pwede mo siyang i-declare as presumed as dead. except for succession. Mga may properties, yan, pwede mo pang i-extend yan. Okay? But generally, 7 years. Okay? So, pag sa succession, the absentee shall not resume debt for the purpose of opening his succession till after the absence of 10 years. Yan. So, yan yung sinasabi ko. Pag when it comes to succession of properties, ang umno, the 7 years, you can extend it until 10 years at pag wala siya, then pwedeng i-consider yan as debt. Another, if he disappeared after the age of 75 years of age, an absence of 5 years shall be sufficient in order to open his succession. So, ito about sa succession naman yan. Yeah. So, ulitin natin, pag about the opening of succession, kung pwede mo nang ipamana o kunin yung mga properties na naiwan, hintayin mo hanggang 10 years. Another, pag yung nawala is 75 years of age. No? Nawala siya nung 75 siya. No? At wala kang balita, umno. Ang 5 years, pwede mo nang i-open yung succession of whatever property. Okay? That is under presumption. Of course, kasi matandaan na yan. So, baka namatay na yan. Okay? Then another is this one, the 3 here. No? Okay? They can be presumed dead. Yung mga seamen na nawala dahil sa crash ng ship or wreck or crash of airplane or passengers. Person who are members of the armed forces, like even the police and the military. Okay? And a person who has been in danger of death, mga nalunod, anod, natambunan, natural calamities, then they can be considered dead. Kung after 4 years they have their location or any details of them are not known. Okay? That is on the presumption of death. So next topic here, ladies and gentlemen, is all about the stages of medico-legal investigation. Stages of medico-legal investigation. Okay? So this is very important, no? As investigator, you are part of this medico-legal investigation. Okay? So always remember this, no? That is why as investigator, you are a part of this because it is you who will process the crime scene. Okay? The crime scene. So the number 1 stage of medico-legal investigation is the so-called crime scene investigation. And this is where crime or criminal investigators or investigators check in. Okay? So the crime scene is, of course, the place where the essential ingredients of the criminal act took place. That is why we mentioned before that the crime scene is considered the treasure island of criminal investigation because this is where majority of physical evidence are located. Okay? So not all crimes have a well-defined crime scene, like estafa, malversation, and the like. No, mela silang well-defined crime scene. So basically, ang common crimes na may crime scene is those crimes, mostly crimes against person, specifically the murder, homicide, infanticide, parricide. Common yan na may crime scene. Okay? So crime scene investigation, sometimes to us, ang tawag natin is scene of crime operation. SOCOM. We call it scene of crime operation. But generally and widely, it is called crime scene investigation. So again, crime scene investigation is part of criminal investigation. So crime scene investigation includes the appreciation of its condition and drawing of an inference from it. It also includes the collection of physical evidence that may lead to the identity of the perpetrator, the manner of the criminal act was executed, and such other things that may be useful in the prosecution of the case. What is the importance of crime scene investigation? Crime scene investigation is very important, no, because it will provide a great amount of physical evidence, no. So a great amount of physical evidence may be lost or unrecovered if the investigation merely starts at the autopsy table or in the medico-legal examining room. Blood, semen, and other stains, latent fingerprint, footprints, and articles of value that may lead to the identification of the offender and victim may be beyond the comprehension of the investigator if the crime scene is not investigated. So yan ang sinasabi ko noon, that the crime scene is very important to properly process it. Kailangan, no, crime scene investigation must be properly performed. Kaya pag ang investigator, no, they lack the knowledge, the skills, and the resources to process the crime scene, then pwedeng masira ang mga physical evidence na yan or pwedeng hindi ma-discover or ma-contaminate. Pag hindi sinunod yung procedures provided in the collection of evidence, then it may destroy the evidence, then there will be no sufficient evidence to prove or accomplish the threefold aims of investigation. No? So ganon kaimportante ang crime scene investigation na dapat gawin ng tama yan. That is why in the conduct of crime scene investigation, we already discussed the proper procedures. No? Yeah. Upon the arrival of the first responder, upon the arrival of the investigators on case or the investigating team, until sa assistance ng SOCO if necessary, until the lifting of the crime scene. Yan, and that's the end of the crime scene investigation. No? So there are procedures to follow. No? Kaya pag hindi yan pinases ng tama, then sayang ang evidence. Magkakaroon ng tinatawag na mark, mutilation, alteration, and contamination of physical evidence at the crime scene. And again, sinasabi dito na walang gagawin ang laboratory, walang ma-autopsy, walang ma-examine ang mga forensic ballistics specialist, yung mga fingerprint technician, yung mga question document examiner, wala silang ma-examine na tama or walang sufficient na evidence to be examined in the laboratory kung hindi mangyayari yung crime scene investigation or hindi magagawa ng tama ang crime scene investigation. Kaya pag mali, there is improper, insufficient conduct of crime scene investigation, then there will also be improper evidence, there are insufficient evidence, and as a result, evidence are destroyed, then there will be no laboratory examination of evidence. Okay? So that is how the criminal or crime scene investigation is very important to consider. Okay? So that is very clear. In violent death cases, the manner and cause of death may be inferred from the condition of the crime scene. The condition of the crime scene may indicate a struggle. Handgun firmly grasped in the palm of the hand of the deceased may indicate suicide. The presence of a great quantity of shed blood may infer hemorrhage as the cause of death of the victim. The investigator has the earliest possible opportunity to interview persons who have knowledge of the circumstances of actual events in the commission of the criminal act. The proximity of the narration to the actual occurrence makes it reliable than those given after the lapse of time. So sinasabi dito that the crime scene itself can give you a story upon viewing it, upon surveying it, or upon arrival And upon processing the crime scene properly, then from that on, from that alone, you can no make your inference, you can establish your analysis based on the appearance of the crime scene. That is why the crime scene must be protected as a matter of process. Okay? Then the next process or stage of medical legal investigation, as investigator after the processing of the crime scene. Example, in death investigation, there is a dead body at the crime scene. Hindi mo yan basta alisin until you process it. So after you process the crime scene, anong sinasabi niya? Markahan mo yan, no? You mark the position of the body with a chalk. You photograph it, you sketch it. Afterwards, you can now lift the body of the victim and saan mo dadalhin ang dead body as investigator, bring it or bring him or bring the dead person to the crime laboratory for purposes of autopsy. Yeah. Kailangan niyang autopsy because yung autopsy na yan is a tool, a tested tool in legal medicine in order to let the dead person talk. Sa pamamagitan ng autopsy, nakapagsasalita ang patay. Yeah. Okay? Through autopsy. Okay? And who will do autopsy? A licensed physician, a medico-legal officer. Yeah. And what is the purpose of autopsy? The purpose of autopsy is to determine the manner and the cause of death. Paano siya namatay. Yan. Okay? Akala mo pala suicide, yun pala ang kinamatay is poison. Yeah, because of poison. Then, hindi na yan suicide, it will become homicide, it will become murder. You see that? Okay? Yan. So, autopsy. Paano mo masabi na murder? Use the law. Paano mo masabi na ang pinamatay is hindi suicide? Use medical knowledge. And autopsy is a medical procedure. It is a medical procedure conducted examining a dead body to establish the cause of death. Yeah. So an autopsy is a comprehensive study of a dead body performed by a trained physician employing recognized dissection procedure and techniques. It includes the removal of tissues for further examination. Kasi sometimes pag katapos i-dissect, pwede silang kumuha ng organs, specific organs for purposes of further examination. Kaya pwedeng ibalik yung katawan, tahiin yan, wala na siyang heart, wala na siyang lungs, yan, ibalik sa nearest kin or relative. Okay? So autopsy versus post-mortem examination. Again, what is post-mortem? Meaning after death examination. What is the opposite of post-mortem? Ante-mortem. Okay? So autopsy and post-mortem examination, they have a difference, but they have the same nature. So post-mortem examination refers to the external examination of a dead body without incision being made. Without incision being made. So, ibig sabihin, ang post-mortem is yan yung unang procedure na ginagawa ng isang medical legal officer before autopsy. Yan. Pwedeng ganun yung mangyari. Or pwede rin na post-mortem examination is an external examination only without the conduct of what is that incision or dissection. Okay? So, pwedeng unang ginagawa ang post-mortem bago autopsy or pwedeng post-mortem lamang ang gagawin, external examination. So, ang ginagawa dyan is external, sinecheck yung parts of your body, no? Tinitingnan kung may wounds, and so forth and so on, or any evidence. Okay? Then ang autopsy, it is the in the case that in addition to an external examination of the body, there should be an internal. Yan. Yan yung sinasabi ko kanina. Yan. Pagkatapos mong ma-check yung external, then you can now proceed to check the internal. At yan ang mas magbibigay sa iyo ng kalinawan as far as the cause of death is concerned. Okay? Internal examination. So autopsy is an internal examination. Okay? There are kinds of autopsies. There are two kinds of autopsies, hospital or non-official autopsy. Yeah, non-official autopsy. Okay? Hospital or non-official. So, yan. Pag may namatay sa hospital, gusto lang malaman ng relative kung ano yung kinamatay kasi questionable or hindi nila alam, para lang malaman nila kung ano ang kinamatay, then they can request for the conduct of a hospital autopsy. Or these are the reason why of a hospital autopsy. Pag hospital, walang there is no crime or there is no alleged crime involved. Yan. Walang violation of law involved as far as criminal law is concerned. So that is why here, gusto mo lang malaman ang cause of death for the satisfaction of the family. You want to provide the correlation of clinical diagnosis, no? Para tingnan kung talagang yan ang kinamatay, determining the effectiveness of therapy, studying the natural course of the disease, and of course, for educational purposes. Yan, educational purposes, especially yung mga students of medical courses like medical doctors, no? So in as much as previous consent of the next kin is necessary before a non-official autopsy can be performed under the law, like under the civil code states that who is the rightful person to give such consent. Okay? So ang non-official autopsy, kailangan bago mo gawin yan, there should be a consent from the nearest kin. Yan. Pag sinabing nearest kin, nearest relative. So kung anak yan, of course, ang nearest is the father and mother. Kung asawa yan, it is the spouse. Yan. Okay? So, yan ang nearest kin. Kailangan may consent. Written consent yan. Okay? Yan. So, tingnan natin dito. This is the order of rightful person who could give consent now for the conduct of a non-official or hospital autopsy. Order. Yan. Kung sino ang dapat. Una, the consent shall be obtained from the spouse. Kung ang namatay may asawa, then ang una of course is yung asawa niya. Pangalawa, yung kanyang mga descendants, yung mga anak, kung may anak yan. No? Then, ascendants, kung yan ay anak na walang asawa. No? Then, kung yan ay walang magulang, no? Yan. Walang magulang, okay? Kapatid lang, then basically, brothers and sisters. Yan ang nearest order of the nearest relative who will give consent, no, in the conduct of hospital or non-official autopsy. Okay. So next is the medico-legal or official autopsy. Yan yung applicable, no, that is the one that is being conducted when there is a request for the conduct of it during criminal investigation. Okay? Okay. All right. So what is medico-legal or official autopsy? As I said, this is conducted whenever there is criminal investigation concerned, whenever there is death investigation. So still, this is an autopsy conducted for the purpose of determining the cause, the manner, and the time of death. Yeah. Yan ang unang-una. Cause, manner, or mode and time of death. Recovering or identifying and preserving evidentiary material, providing interpretation and correlation of facts and circumstances related to death. Providing a factual, objective medical report for law enforcement, prosecution, and defense agencies. Yeah, so as a whole, there is relation to the solution of the crime or a violation of criminal law. No? Yan ang medical legal or official autopsy. In cases which require a medical legal autopsy, the dead body belongs to the state. Yeah. For the protection of public interest until such time as a complete and thorough investigation into the circumstances surrounding the death and cause thereof has been completed. The physician tasked to perform such autopsy is considered to be the authoritative agent and representative of the state who has the property right of the dead body. All that need to be turned over to the next of kin responsible for the burial of the deceased is that the remaining portion or portions of the body not needed for any medical legal purposes. So dito muna tayo. Tingnan niyo yan. Ito. Okay? So dito sa medical legal or official autopsy, pag natapos na ang medical legal autopsy, ibabalik ito sa nearest relative or next kin. But remember this, pwedeng ibalik lang kung ano ang hindi kailangan for further examination. Example, kinuha nila yung brain, yung stomach, yung heart, yung lungs. Yan, wala na yung mga internal organs. Ang ibalik na lang sa'yo is kung ano ang pwedeng ibalik. Okay? Yan. And remember this, as a pang issue dito sa medical legal autopsy, what is that? The consent is not needed. So long as that death is related to an investigation of a crime to determine the cause of death for purposes of the criminal investigation, then no need for a consent because it is now under the protection of the state, no? And who is in charge? It is the medical legal officer. So no need for a consent in medical legal autopsy. Okay? All right. So that is all about medical legal autopsy. Let me read this also. If the person who issues a death certificate has any reason to suspect, or if he shall observe any indication of violence or crime, he shall at once notify the justice of the peace, or now we know it's the municipal trial court judge. No? If he be available or neither the justice of the peace nor the auxiliary justice be available, he shall notify the municipal mayor, who shall take a proper steps to ascertain the circumstances and cause of death. And the corpse of such deceased person shall not be buried or interred until permission is obtained by the provincial fiscal or the prosecutor. If he be available, and if he not available, from the mayor of the municipality in which the death occurred. So remember this, example, yung mga nag-i-issue ng death certificate like yung PSA or the Philippine Statistics Office or formerly known as NSO. Pag meron silang suspect that there is a violence or crime involved in the death of the person, then they can notify the municipal trial court through its municipal trial court judge, no? Or the mayor. Yan. So yung mayor na yan, they will take the necessary steps to investigate the matter. Yan. Okay? So that is the issue there. When shall an autopsy be performed on a dead body? Yan. This is provided by Section 95 Section 95 of Presidential Decree number 856, the Code of Sanitation of the Philippines. Okay? When shall an autopsy be performed on a dead body? Yan. So yung mga kapapasok lang na tatlo, welcome, and I am just discussing in advance, not to consume the time properly. Anyway, I will upload kung anong na-discuss ko kanina. I will upload it in our YouTube so that you will have a resource to cope, no? So I already started my discussion around before 2 o'clock a while ago. Anyway, this is a continuation of chapter 5. So when shall an autopsy be performed on a dead body? Yan. Kailan ginagawa ang autopsy sa isang dead body? As provided by PD 856, the Code of Sanitation of the Philippines. Whenever required by special laws. So whenever required by special laws. If the law requires that there should be autopsy, then there should be an official autopsy. No? Upon order of a competent court, a mayor, and a provincial or city fiscal. So ang fiscal is we are talking about the prosecutor. No? Alam niyo na kung ano ang fiscal. No? Upon written request, no? Upon written request of police authorities. Yan, example yung investigator, dito papasok yung investigator, no? When there is a request for the conduct of autopsy by the police authorities like the investigator, then an autopsy shall be conducted. Specifically, is that official or medico-legal autopsy. Next, whenever the Solicitor General, ang Solicitor General, yan yung lawyer of the government. Yan. Isang tao yan. So pag sinabing Solicitor General, tao yan. Siya ang abogado ng gobyerno. So pag may kaso ang gobyerno, then it is the Solicitor General who will defend the government, no? As lawyer of the government. Okay? Or the provincial or city fiscal as authorized by existing laws shall deem it necessary to center and take possession of the remains for examination to determine the cause of death. Yeah. And lastly, whenever the nearest kin, yan, katulad ng kaso ni Da Sierra na yung kanyang ina, for instance, kasi wala siyang asawa, nag-request siya, no, ng another autopsy, no, then an autopsy may be conducted. Okay? Okay? Whenever the nearest kin. So again, what is kin? Nearest relative yan. No? Kin means relative. Who are the persons authorized to perform autopsies? No? The following are authorized to perform autopsies. No? Health officers. No? Whether this is official or hospital. No? Autopsies. Okay. Health officers. Yan, yung mga medical doctors in hospital. Medical officers of the law enforcement agencies, yung mga medical legal officers natin. Example sa PNP, meron tayong medical legal officer. In the crime laboratory, pwede siyang mag-conduct. No? Members of the medical staff of accredited hospitals. Yeah. So these are the three individuals, but all of them are medical. All of them are licensed physicians. All of them are medical doctors. Iba-iba lang yung trabaho nila. Health officers, yan, medical legal officers of the law enforcement agencies like in the NBI, PNP, yan. Okay? Members of the medical staff of accredited hospitals. Okay? Next distinction, no, between pathological. Yan, isa ring term yan, pathological or non-official. So tatlo na, no? Let me just show you yung mga late, yung kinds of autopsies, hospital or non-official autopsy or slash pwede mo rin tawagin pathological autopsy. No? Okay? So distinction between pathological or non-official and the medico-legal or official autopsies. No? So number one, requirement. Pathological autopsy, it must have the consent of the relative. The medico-legal autopsy, it is the law that gives the consent. So no need for an autopsy. Consent of relatives are not needed for medico-legal autopsy. Okay? Next, purpose. Let us see the difference of the purpose of pathological and medico-legal autopsy. Purpose, confirmation of clinical findings or research. The medico-legal autopsy naman is to correlate tissue changes to the criminal act in relation to a criminal act. Yeah, titignan yung kung may abnormalities. Example, sinasabing suicide yan, no? Pero nung in-autopsy at tinignan yung internal organs, for example, there is an abnormality, hindi normal yung kanyang lungs kasi meron palang chemicals that is within it, then they may explain it as the cause. No, there is poison, for instance. Okay, so emphasis, notation of all abnormal findings, emphasis laid on the effect of wrongful act of the body. Other findings may only be noted in mitigation of the criminal responsibility. Conclusion, in pathological autopsy, ang conclusion is summation of all abnormal findings for purposes of cure, no, or research. Sa medico-legal naman, it must be specific for the purpose of determining whether it is in relation to a criminal act. Kaya pag nag-examine ang medico-legal officer, nag-autopsy yan, in his conclusion, kailangan specific. Ano ang meron, ano ang chemicals na andon, and so forth and so on. Then, minor or non-pathological, yung mga minor defects, for example, or wounds, no? Minor, what is that, defects in the tissues. Sa pathological, hindi kailangang isali sa report yan, no? Pero sa medico-legal autopsy, if the investigator thinks it will be useful in the administration of justice, then it should be included. Okay? Katulad ng wounds. Example, sa post-mortem examination, the simple examination, what is that? We already mentioned that before. For a normal or ordinary physician, hindi na niya ini-include yung minor injuries, for example. Pero sa medico-legal officer, when he conducts examination like autopsies, lahat ng pwedeng isali, minor man o hindi, na wounds or injuries or defects, kailangan isali yan in his report. Yeah. Okay, so in other words, to summarize, pathological autopsy, medico-legal autopsy, they have specific differences. Okay? Pero parehas na autopsy yan. Okay? Next is the following manner of death should be autopsies. What are the following manners of death? So pag investigator ka, there is death. These are the manner of death na kailangang mag-request ka ng autopsy. Ulitin ko, this particular topic, if you are an investigator, kung may ganito kang na-encounter na incident, no, reported to you, then kailangang mag-request ka ng autopsy. Okay? So number one, death by violence. So alam niyo naman ang death by violence, kailangan ng pagpatay, like murder, homicide, may namatay, binaril, any other means of killing, no? There is violence. Okay? Yeah. Kailangan mag-request ka ng autopsy. Why we request for autopsy again? What kind of autopsy? Medico-legal autopsy, hindi pathological yan. Siyang pathological or non-official autopsy, ginagawa lang yan. Number one, for educational purposes. Number two, to support the conclusion of the doctor. Number three, pwedeng to satisfy the clamor of the uh, relative of the dead person in hospital. There is no relationship to a crime. But when there is a relationship to the determination of any violation of criminal law, like the commission of a crime, then that is medico-legal autopsy. Therefore, in this particular topic, no, kailangan meron kang gawing request for medico-legal autopsy. As I said a while ago, in death by violence, you request for autopsy. Accidental death, yung mga motor vehicle accident, may namatay. Sometimes, no, kailangan kahit obvious na ang pinamatay is dahil nabangga, we are not sure of it. Kailangan ipa-undergo mo for autopsy kasi that is your basis to consider or establish the cause of death. No? Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin dahil sa nabangga. No? But there should be autopsy. No? Because that is your only basis to establish the cause of death. Kaya again, pag investigator kayo, you responded to that particular kind of incident, then you have to request the crime laboratory to conduct autopsy. Okay? Next is suicide. Yeah. So pag ang nag-respond ka sa isang death incident, suicide, allegedly suicide, kasi pumunta ka is nakahang yung tao or may hawak siyang baril, then that is suicide, for instance. But again, no, not all suicides are suicides, but sometimes suicides are murder or homicide. So that is why kailangan mong ipa-autopsy yan. Okay? So pag robbery ang kaso, walang namatay, no need for an autopsy. No? Next is sudden death of persons who are apparently in good health. No? Yan, nagtsatsagging naman yan, healthy foods ang kinakain, bata pa yan, biglang namatay, there is sudden death. No? Kailangan i-undergo yan ng autopsy. No? Malay natin, there is foul play. Meron palang nagbigay ng poison sa kanya. Yan. Then, death unattended by physician. Yan. Pag merong incident or haka-haka or nalaman that the dead person died because there is no physician who attended him or her. No? Walang nag-respond na physician o hinayaan, hindi siya pinansin, kaya namatay siya. No? Undergo yan ng autopsy para malaman ang cause of death. Next is death in hospitals or clinics, DOA. Dalawa ang meaning ng DOA. Dying on arrival. No? Dying on arrival or dead on arrival. Okay? Pag dead on arrival, patay na yan nung dumating. Pag dying, namamatay na nung pagdating niya. Okay? Dying or dead on arrival. So, yung mga DOA na yan, kailangan i-subject yan for autopsy. Then, death occurring in an unnatural manner. Yan, unnatural manner. Hindi natural manner yung pagkapatay. Yan. Okay? So those are the common manner of death where there should be a request for autopsy. Okay? Next is the stages in the post-mortem examination of the dead body. The stages in the post-mortem examination of the body. Important din ito as investigators because if you are at the crime scene, pwede mong gawin ito as part of the procedure. No? Especially on the dead body. Okay? So first is preliminary examination. Ano ang ginagawa sa preliminary examination? Yan. Ano ang ginagawa? Okay. Examination of the surroundings of it. We are referring to the crime scene. Attention must be focused on the furniture, bullet holes, on the ceiling, floor, and walls, amount, color, shape, and degree of spread of the blood stains, position of the wounding weapon, foot and fingerprints, and hairs and claws. So ito yung i-consider mo ah, in the preliminary examination. No? Examination of the surroundings. We are referring to the crime scene. Okay? So attention must be focused on the furniture, bullet holes. No? So, pagpunta mo doon when you conduct the survey, kailangan yan ang i-take note mo. No? Next, as part of the preliminary examination, what is postmortem again? Sa mga hindi pa nakakaalam, postmortem means after death. What is the opposite of postmortem? Antemortem. So ginagawa ito after death. Examination of the clothing. Look for marks to establish identity. Yan. Example, pag yung uniform niya is baka uniform ng student ng IFSU. Yan. Kasi may ganong logo. Kind and quality of the garment. Yan. Stains, grease, cut and tear of other marks or other marks of resistance and violence. Kailangan i-record mo yan. Identity of the body. Determine the height, the weight, the color of the hair and eyes, complexion, condition and number of teeth, bodily deformity, scars and tattoo marks, clothing, dog tag, and fingerprints. Kailangan yan yung ma-determine mo to establish initial identity of the dead body. Yeah. See that? Kung walang ID, hindi yan na-identify. Kailangan po yan ang gamitin mo for purposes of identification. So kung hindi mo pa alam ang pangalan, kaya sometimes anong tawag sa unidentified dead body? Yeah. Merong natagpo ang bangkay, hindi kilala, hindi alam ang pangalan, hindi alam ang identity. What is the proper term used? It is the term cadaver. Cadaver. Yeah, cadaver. Okay? So it's after preliminary examination. Next is external examination. Yeah, external examination. Examination of the body surfaces. Inspect the natural orifice of the body. Ano ang mga natural orifice, mga openings? Pag sinabing orifice, these are the openings of the body. The nose, the ears, the mouth. Yeah, the anus. Yan yung mga common natural orifice of the body. All wounds must be described in details. Yeah. Blood stains and foreign bodies. Second, determination of the position and approximate time of death. In this stage, the presence and degree of hypostasis, rigor mortis and putrefaction, and the color of the blood stain must be noted. Examination of the hands for the presence of cadaveric spasm, wounding weapon may be necessary for the proper solution of the crime. Yeah. So for you to determine the position and approximate the time of death, ano yung mga kino-consider natin? Isang common is the presence of rigor mortis. Kaya pag investigator ka, kailangan i-take note mo yan. Upon arrival at the crime scene, upon checking or external examination, merong rigor mortis. Yan. And I hope you know what is rigor mortis. Yan. Example, pagpunta mo doon sa crime scene, skeletonized na yung victim. Yan. Skeletonized. So from that alone, you can estimate the time of death. Pwede mong ilagay doon, pwede mong i-conclude that ang taong yan, namatay na yan 1 month ago, 3 months ago, or 2 months ago. So yan ang importance ng medical knowledge na yan. Because we learned before that pag na-skeletonize ng isang tao, almost 1 month na yan. So pag 1 month na yan, skeletonized na ang dead body. So yan ang basis natin. Okay? Estimate the time of death. Even the rigor mortis. Ilang oras after death bago may rigor mortis. Yeah. Okay? Ilang oras. So I hope you were able to familiarize that. I already provided that to you. Okay? Rigor mortis. I will ask that by and by if we have time. Rigor mortis, labor mortis, then albor mortis. So after the external examination, next is internal examination. Examine all body orifices. For blood and foreign bodies, blood coming out of the nostrils may imply fracture of the base of the anterior cranial fossa, hemorrhage of the ears. What is hemorrhage? Pagdurugo, may dugo. Yan ang hemorrhage of the ears may imply fracture of the middle cranial fossa. So ang internal sa mga natural orifices ng body, pwede mong tignan yan sa loob. Yan, sa tenga. Kung merong pagdurugo, record it in your notes. Okay? So again, the stages in the post-mortem examination of the dead body, preliminary, umpisahan mo yan in the examination of the surroundings of the crime scene. Take note, then examination of the clothing. Yan. Then after that, external examination. Yan. Then lastly, internal examination. Okay? Hindi pa autopsy yan. The next topic, when we are dealing with death investigation, so when there is a dead person, then after undergoing the necessary processes, especially in terms of medico-legal investigation, in terms of criminal investigation, na-examine na yung katawan, etc., etc., then of course, the last part of it is to dispose the body. Hindi mo naman yung ilagay sa office at maging souvenir mo yan. So kailangan as part of natural processes, and as provided by law, dead body must be disposed. Yan. Sa ngayon, pag ikaw ay na-COVID, namatay ka dahil sa COVID-19, then paano nila dinidispose ang katawan mo? Yan. Number one, yan. They will bury you 100 meters below the ground. Number two, they have to burn you. Yeah, through cremation. Okay. So anyway, we will see. Persons charged with the duty of burial. Now, the immediate duty of burying the body of a deceased person, regardless of the ultimate liability for the expense thereof, shall devolve upon the persons herein below specified. Yeah. Ito yung mga may karapatan, to dispose a dead body. Number one, ito. If the deceased was a married man or woman, the duty of burial shall devolve upon the surviving spouse. Yeah. If he or she possesses sufficient means to pay the necessary expenses. So number one, pag may asawang namatay, ang may karapatan to do the burial or dispose the dead body, then it is the surviving spouse. Secondly, if the deceased was an unmarried man or woman or a child, let any kin, it is the nearest kin of the deceased. Yeah. Kung unmarried, alam niyo naman yan, pag ikaw ay anak at wala kang asawa at namatay, then ang nearest kin mo, number one, is your parents. Yan. Kung wala kang parents, mga kapatid mo. Okay? So yan. If the deceased left no spouse, or kindred possessed of sufficient means to defray the necessary expenses provided, then the duty of the burial shall devolve upon the municipal authorities. Kung talagang walang-wala, meron ka namang asawa, yan, kapatid, pero you cannot provide, or you have nothing to finance, the burial, the disposal of the dead body para living, then it is the municipal authorities, who should take charge of that. Okay? But number one, it should be your asawa kung married ka. Kung hindi naman, then your nearest kin. Okay? Kung walang-wala, then nangyayang it is the municipal authorities. Okay, so methods of disposal. Yan. So yung sinasabi ko, methods of disposal of dead body. Number one is embalming. Yan yung common na ginagawa. Embalming. sa ngayon. The artificial way of preserving the body, no? Yan. Using formalin. Yan, formalin, yan yung pinaka-common na ginagamit. Okay? If the preservation of the body is of a longer time, the abdominal and thoracic viscera are removed. Yan. Washed and soaked in a strong antiseptic solution. Yan. Okay? Noon, inaalis ang external organs, especially the stomach. Yan yung mga naunang nabubulok. Kung i-preserve mo yung body for a longer time, yan ang ginagawa. No? Second is burial. Yan, itong embalming. Boreal. Ano ang boreal or inhumation? Kung may inhumation, merong exhumation. Yan. Ang exhumation, yan yung riniretract mo yung nailibing na tao sa grave. Yan ang exhumation. Ang inhumation, yan yung paglilibing. Okay? So, burial, the body must be buried within 48 hours after death. Yan ang batas. No? So, do not question yourself, bakit sa amin 5 days, 10 days, 8 days, 3 days, no? The law says it should be 48 hours, no? Time within which body shall be buried, yan, except when required for purposes of legal investigation, yan. When specifically authorized by local authorities, no embalmed body shall remain unburied longer than yan. So pag hindi yan embalmed, yan, dapat within 48 hours na ilibing yan. Ulitin ko, if it is not embalmed, then within 48 hours, that body should be buried. Kung wala ng ibang problema. Okay? Yeah. Okay, pakibasa na lang yan. The dead body must be buried within 48 hours after death, except, yan, yan. Kung unembalmed yan, pwede bang lumagpas ng 48 hours? Yes. When it is still a subject matter under legal investigation, when it is specifically authorized by the local health authorities, no? And implied when the body is embalmed. If the person died of a communicable disease, yan. So, tingnan niyo dito. Pag embalmed yung body, then pwedeng more than 48 hours bago ito i-burial or ilibing. No? Okay? Pakibasa na lang yan. Alright. Death certificate necessary before burial. Yan. Kailangan din ang death certificate kasi isa rin yan, evidence. Okay? So death certificate, requirement of death certificate by whom to be issued, except in cases of emergency. No dead body shall be buried without a certificate of death. If there has been a physician in attendance, yan, pakibasa na lang yan because we have again 10 minutes remaining. Yan. Okay? About that certificate. Kaya dapat ang kunin yung certificate na asam-asam in this death certificate, but a certificate that you are a full-fledged criminologist. Okay? Okay. All right. So that is all about burial or inhumation or the methods of disposal. Meron ding iba, cremation. No? Do not forget that, cremation. Okay. So I end my discussion on this particular part on the methods of disposal of dead body. Since I have 8 minutes remaining in this meeting. Okay, methods of disposal of dead body. Anyway, I started my discussion before 2 o'clock a while ago. That is why natapos ko na yan. No? I will upload it in YouTube so that you will hope kung ano ang na-miss niyo sa ating discussion. Okay, so I will restart the Zoom meeting, the same Zoom meeting, rejoin. Okay, we will have online recitation. Anyway, yung 45 nandito na participants, you have already accumulated 50 points as your quiz, no? 50 points yung mga present na 45. Okay, so I will have a snapshot, no? As part of the scoring. Okay? Ulitin ko pag nag-ganito, because 7 minutes na lang, I will restart and we will have the online recitation. Another 50 points. Okay? Ang coverage niyan is lahat ng discussion sa finals. Okay? All right. So, kapag pinalitan yung pangalan niyo. Okay? I will just right.